I'm a big deer hunter, and this basically means that our deer down here are going to get smaller. Pretty soon we're going to be hunting deer down here on the coast that look like my roommate did in Florida back, 20 years ago. So, again, listen to the experts, guys. We make decisions every day based off of what scientists tell me. I take the pills that they tell me to take because I'm going to get better. I get in airplanes and trust that they're going to actually, these big, huge hunks of steel are going to fly through the air amazingly because scientists tell me that they do, Doctors, we listen to what scientists tell us. So we listen to the experts. 90% of Earth scientists believe that global climate change is real. 82% believe that humans are the cause of global climate change. But 97% of climatologists believe in anthropogenic global climate change, man-made global climate weirding. What that means is a climatologist would be like if you were a guy, you go and you go to a proctologist, That's a climatologist. They study climate over long periods of time. No, meteorologists look at climate for can you play golf tomorrow? Okay? In 2004, the Pentagon released a report to the Bush administration that warned of rising sea levels, conflict, mega droughts, famine, and riots all across the world. And the quote was, disruption and conflict will be endemic features of life. Once again, warfare will define human life. They're basically saying it's real, it can happen, and when it does, we're going to have to do something about it. The military is saying this. We got some issues in the South specifically. And we go quickly, but the real cost of stuff. Anybody tell me, anybody buy gas today? Okay, how much did you pay?
$28.
What'd you pay per gallon?
Per gallon, $1.89.
$1.89? Okay. This is a little bit, I buy very little gas. So. One of the best examples of this massive market failure can be seen in the United States, where the gasoline pump price in mid-2007 was $3 a gallon. But this price reflects only the cost of discovering the oil, pumping it to the surface, refining it into gasoline, and delivering the gas to the service station. It overlooks the cost of climate change as well as the cost of tax subsidies to the oil industry, such as the oil depletion allowance, the burgeoning military cost of protecting access to oil in the politically unstable Middle East, and the healthcare cost for treating respiratory illness from breathing polluted air. Based on the study by the International Center for Technology Assessment, these costs now total nearly $12 per gallon of gas burned in the United States. If these were added to the $3 cost of gas itself, motorists would pay $15 a gallon for gas at the pump. In other words, there's externalities, to use a business term. There's cost off the books. There's cost associated that you pay that the business is not paying, but it still affects you. Okay? I have a 6-year-old in school. 50% of the people in his class, his kids in his class, have respiratory illnesses. When I was growing up in the 70s, like jumping fences and playing outside without sunscreen on and drinking straight from the water hose. Wow. Man, I don't remember any of my friends having respiratory illnesses. We weren't running and playing baseball and then, hold on, I got to hit my breather. No, So there are costs that exist outside of that, outside of what you pay. And it's for everything you pay. For instance, they talk about the Pentagon resources that are used. Those are your tax dollars. They're protecting private industries, ships, and oil lines so you get cheap gas. But you're going to pay it now, you're going to pay it later. That's the real cost of things. It's a failure of our system. Other is the South's inefficiencies. Okay? I'm going to talk about in a second. Net metering, renewable portfolio standards. Remember those when we talk about legislation. And then development incentives. This is my cousin in Alabama. No, seriously. I got this from a friend of mine at Auburn, and he actually put it up at a presentation at ASHE, and he said, this is my cousin in Mississippi. And he was talking about me. So I got it from him, and now I say, this is my cousin in Alabama. But the fact of the matter is, this is what the rest of the world thinks of us, of Mississippi. And I deal with it every day. and I'm sure of this, because we do things like this. We create policies like no accordions. I mean, you gotta ask yourself, who just walking around thought, I'm gonna build up and make a sign that says no accordions? Like the accordion players of, I gotta put this sign up or they're just gonna overwhelm my business. You know? And so every day I grab somebody's collar and I just, what do we do? Because and some of the, because we know that we got these 3 800-pound gorillas, but what are we gonna do about it? And it's as if in our state, we're just gonna do very little. We'll let everybody else take care of it. People are just running away from us on preparing themselves for the 800-pound gorillas. So, for example, federal subsidies. From 1943 to 1999, we spent $145 billion on subsidies for nuclear. It's not a bad idea. But we only spent $4.4 billion on solar and $1.3 billion on wind. Although we know that it's going to run out. Okay? Thomas Edison said, I put my money on the sun and solar energy. What a source of power. I hope we don't have to wait until oil and coal run out before we tackle that. You know? That's kind of the status quo. That's kind of the modus operandi right now. We're going to just wait and see what happens before we do anything. I give Southern Company a hard time, but they're actually friends of mine. This past year, they actually pulled back their lobbying efforts when we tried to initiate some net metering laws and some tax incentives in Mississippi. They basically said, okay, we'll play ball. But in the past, there's been this huge, strong lobby in Mississippi to keep you from being able to generate your own power. The future of energy is on-site generation. It's not in massive alternative energy. You're not going to see these huge solar farms. You're not going to see huge wind farms. You're going to see houses designed terribly efficiently, green, conscious of the environment, and able to generate their own power. That's the source. That's the future of energy generation. It's on-site. Okay? But to do that, you have to have net metering laws and tax incentives, which means you have to be able to have solar panels on your house, and at a time when you're generating more power than the house is using, it's put back into the grid, and the energy companies buy it from you. So at the end of the month, you may have a $7 electricity bill as opposed to a $170 electricity bill. Sounds great, right? Well, those systems are costly because we don't have the tax incentives either, but they're coming. Energy consumption in the South, in the southeastern U.S. is the worst. We have the highest per capita electricity consumption, but we have the lowest energy efficiency spending. It's a fifth of the national average, meaning we build really inefficient buildings, okay? We have the lowest Energy Star adoption. So we build really inefficient buildings, and then we fill it full of inefficient electronics. We just say, well, we pay 7.5 cents, a kilowatt hour for electricity. Why not? Well, because that's not going to exist forever. You're going to start seeing that. But again, remember the Pentagon gets it, right? And they know that it can mean serious conflict for civilization. So what do? What do y'all see back there on the hills back there behind that Air Force base? Yeah, that's in North Texas. This is a policy of theirs. They're preparing all of their bases to be able to fight if they're not on the grid, if they can't afford the energy. They're going to start generating their own. Okay? Just because you're not hearing about stuff doesn't mean it's not happening. So why us? Specifically, why higher education? Why the students? Well, first of all, it's the right thing to do. Just to let the administrators in here know, if you consider all of the energy we use, our buildings, our events, our transportation, our water, our food, all of our consumption, higher education uses 20% of the nation's natural resources. We are larger than most countries of the world. We have, as higher education administrators, a responsibility not only to educate, which I'll talk about in a second, but also to implement and start taking care of those natural resources. Two, it's an easy thing to do. I would never stand up here and ask anybody to go out, wear a hair shirt, live in a cave, and eat locusts and honey, okay, like John the Baptist. I'm not asking for a John the Baptist type lifestyle, okay? What we're talking about doing is changing cognitive processes. Third, it's our responsibility as educators. Right now, what's occurring in Europe, in Asia, in India is going to surpass us. I've already seen it. I got a call from a German company just the other day wanting to sell a solar application, and the reason? Because they're ready, they've been making a lot of money doing it, and we don't have the capabilities in the United States. But pretty soon, China and Europe and Asia, they're going to overcome our country's status as the world leader in this. And this is going to be the next era